Welcome everyone. Today we are going to learn about overloading. What we can overload? A function can be overloaded, an operator can be overloaded. Function, we know we use it inside a class. We see how to overload a function. You might be wondering how to overload an operator. When we say operator plus symbol, minus symbol, or any operator symbol, I'm saying we can overload. That means the same symbol can be used for calculation, and as well as that can be used as a function also, that can be used to call a function also. Let's see one by one. First we see about function overloading. It is a feature in C++ where two or more functions can have the same name but different parameters. You can see here in this picture I'm having 5 functions. All the 5 functions are having the same name. The only thing which is going to differ here is the parameters. First one contains no parameter, second one integer, third one float, fourth one integer and float, and next float and integer. All these functions are a valid function, and these are all called as function overloading. I use one function name with different parameters. So this can be considered as an example of polymorphism feature in C++. If you remember, when we learned about WOP concept, we learned about class, object, data abstraction, polymorphism. While we learned about polymorphism, there are two categories. One is function overloading, another one is operator overloading. We see with an example how this function overloading works. Before that, we see what is operator overloading. In C++, we can make operators to work for user-defined classes. This means C++ has the ability to provide the operators with a special meaning for a data type. This ability is known as operator overloading. Like I said, any operator can be overloaded. If I'm saying plus, it will perform addition operation. At the same time, same plus can be used to call a member function or to define or perform a member function. So it has a special keyword operator followed by a symbol for the operator being defined. Like any other function, an operator overloading has a return type and a parameter list. Let's see the syntax, how the operator overloading looks like. We don't have any special syntax for function overloading. The only thing is we must have a same function name. But here we are overloading an operator, so we have to make a special syntax to perform this function. You can see the return type, class name, scope resolution operator, and then class name and scope resolution, as because this is an example I have taken when an operator overloading is defined outside the class. Usually it contains return type, class name, scope resolution operator, and then this operator is a keyword. And next we have a operator symbol, any symbol which you are going to overload. Plus means just mention plus here, minus means mention minus here, and followed with argument list. Like friend function, the argument list should be a object followed with the class name. So if I'm defining the operator overloading inside the class, we will not be having this class name and scope resolution operator. We go directly with return type and then operator and the symbol that we are overloading and argument list. So let's see an example for operator overloading also. Totally we are going to see 3 examples in code blocks. One for function overloading and 2 programs for operator overloading. Let's get into code blocks. I have a project auto underscore batch 1 and I have created a file called fun underscore over.cpp. So this program is for function overloading. So in this program I am making very simple. I am not going to use any arguments since all the values are going to be passed as a parameter inside a function. So let me have function alone inside a class. I'm going to have 3 functions. All 3 functions are going to have a same name but different parameter. The first function is going to print the integer value. Second function is going to print the float value, and third function is going to print a string but using a character keyword. Let's see that. So I've created a class named data, and I have three functions. All three functions are having the same name as print. First one, I'm giving the parameter as integer. Second one, I'm giving as float. Third, I'm giving it as character star C. First is going to print the integer value. I'm giving C out, printing int value, and just I'm giving I. So whatever I'm passing inside this parameter value is going to be displayed here. Likewise, float is going to be displayed here. And here, a string is going to be displayed. We have a separate keyword to print a string, but I'm calling character one by one. If there is a one full string, say hello, if I use only character C without using this asterisk symbol, if I use only character C, that means it is going to print only H. It's going to skip all the E, L, L, O. I want all the respective values to be printed. So that's the reason I'm using character star. You know the meaning, the purpose of using star. It's a asterisk symbol, pointer. We mainly use for a pointer reason. So I'm making this variable as a pointer here. So I have to use as character star and then space C. So meaning for character star, it's a pointer to an array of characters. So when I say hello, it's an array of characters. So if I say character star, it's going to print HELLO. That's the reason I'm using character star. It's going to read the characters one by one. Now inside the main function, let me create an object. Let me say D, and I'm going to call all these three functions separately. D dot print of, let me use floating value, and then I say D dot print an integer, and then I say hi everyone. Okay. Now this d dot print of, when I give a floating value, it's going to call the second function and it's going to give the output printing float value 17.45. And next print 58 is going to call the first function, and hi everyone, it's a string, it is going to call the third function. So please remember, character star should be used if you're going to print a string. If you're going to use only character C, that means it prints only H. The remaining values or remaining characters are not going to be considered. Character star is a pointer to an array of characters. Let's see the output. So first one, the float value or the double value is 17.4. It took the second function. And next I say printing integer value. It took the first function, and then printing all characters, hi everyone. So it took the third function. Hope you are clear about how to use function overloading. Be very clear about the return types that you're using over here. I used float. In some cases it works. If it is not working, go for double. Likewise character or any other return type. Be very careful about using. You'll get the right output. Most of the times when you make a error, like if you're using integer I here, and again if you use integer f, you can see it's a same return type, same parameters. So let me check. If I run this program, see it's pointing an error over here. It says it cannot be overloaded. That's because I have the same parameter for both the functions, so I can't have like that. So I have to use a different data type. I say WF. So let's go for the next program. Next program is for operator overloading. We're going to see two programs for operator overloading. First one is going to be quite simple. I'm going to have one argument, and then I'm going to have three functions. First function is for giving a value for the argument, and second function I'm going to use an operator to perform some operation. It may be plus or minus or division. I'll use that accordingly. And the third function is for displaying the value. So one argument and three function. So let's check that. So I have a class name called test, and then I have one argument. I'm giving one variable here, integer count, and then inside public I'm saying void num of. It's a normal function. I'm assigning a value for the variable count. And next function I'm going to use an operator overloading function. So we know the keyword how to use. I have used a return type as void followed with the keyword operator, and then we should have the symbol whatever that we are using. Here I'm using plus plus. I'm going to use plus plus. You know plus plus is for incrementing. Here I'm calling this for performing this function. I say count equal to count plus 1, and then I have another function to display the value. Let me use cout count Alright, so let's get into the main function. Let's see how to call an operator overloading function. So inside the main, let me create an object first. Let me create T as an object. So using this object, I'm going to call all the function one by one. First, let me call the function num. So T dot num of. So it's going to assign the value automatically now. And later, I'm going to call that operator overloading function. I'm going to call this. So how to call this? I have to use the operator plus plus followed with the object. This is one way of calling the function. There is another method also. I'll teach that in the next program. So according to this program, use the operator, whatever that you are using here, and then followed with the object variable. So that will automatically call this function. And then I need to call display of return 0. So let me run this program. Yeah. So I got the output as count as 6. So inside the class test, I have one variable count. One function is for assigning the value 5, and second I am having an operator overloading function. I'm saying plus plus, in which I'm saying I'm adding 1 along with the value 5. So that means count is going to have the value 6. And then I have a function called display that's going to give the output count as 6. So in the main function, everything is normal apart from calling a operator overloading function. So if you need to call an operator overloading function, you have to use this symbol. If you're not using it, it's not going to call it. Use this symbol and it should be associated along with the object name. Automatically this function is going to be called, and the last one, display, is going to be called, and you get the output. So this is one way, very simple way of understanding how to use operator overloading. Let's see one more program for operator overloading. Let's go a little bit a difficult one. Let me use a complex number. We know how to use a complex number. It contains real number and as well as the imaginary number. Let me take two complex number and let me add that and display that as an output. Let's see that. So I have a class name called COMP. Let me use two variable since we have two kind of values. One is going to be a real value, another one is going to be imaginary value. So let me say integer real, comma image, and then let me specify the access specifier. And then here also let me have three function. First function is to assign the value for this real and imaginary. Second function is going to use a operator overloading to perform the addition of two complex values. And third function is for displaying the final output. First one, let me say void values. Let me give the values in parameter. Let me say integer r for real and integer I for imaginary. So real should be assigned with R value and imaginary should be assigned with I value. Now these values will be given in the main function automatically. Whatever I'm giving for r and I is going to be assigned for real and imaginary. So next one is going to be a operator overloading function. So here let me type the function first, and later on I'll explain why I'm using all these kind of stuffs in this operator overloading. It may be a little bit confusing. Just have a look at what I'm doing here. I'm done typing. So we have created two complex numbers and two variables and three functions. Let me check the output first, and then I'll explain why I have used this operator overloading in a different manner. Yeah, I got the output as 12 plus I9. Now come to this program. I hope you're clear with the first function. Before that we have two variables, real and imaginary. I'm using a function name called values. Inside the parameter I'm using r and I. So that's going to be assigned for real and as well as for imaginary. Now you can see here I'm using a syntax quite different with what I have already explained for operator overloading. First is going to be a return type. It should be a return type, but here I'm using COMP. I'm using the class name. I am using a class name as COMP. You can check here. Same class name I'm using here. Why I'm using a return type as a class name? That's one question. And next followed with an operator. It's a keyword. We don't have any problem. And then I'm using a plus operator to overload. So I'm using that, not a problem. And then here I told you the parameter should be an object. I'm using object with an ampersand symbol because it is going to be a call by reference value. So I'm using ampersand and making that as constant. This is not mandatory. Even if you skip this constant, that's not going to pass any error. Sometime if you find it difficult or if you find any error in this parameter, make this object as a constant. And here I'm using the return type as COMP. That means the class name. I guess you have an idea why I'm using a class name here, as because the object should always associated with the class name. That's mandatory. That's the reason I'm using class name here. The question is why class name at the beginning of the syntax. Now get into the definition part. I'm creating an object C. This is not a variable. I'm creating an object C. So if I'm saying C is an object, it should be associated along with the class name. So that's the reason I'm using class name here. So now you're clear why I'm using a class name here and as well as over here, because both the things are objects. C is an object, obj is also an object. So using this object, I'm calling the function real and as well as imaginary. Now look here, I'm saying C dot real equal to real plus object dot real. What it means? So keeping this all in mind, let's go to the main function. Let's check this statement. I'm saying C3 equal to C1 plus C2. So if I say C3 equal to C1 plus, so until it reads this plus symbol, it doesn't know what is this C3, what is this C1. It has a lot of confusion. Once it checks this plus value, it jumps to the operator overloading function. So whatever that is present after this plus symbol, you can see C2, and that is an object that is going to be assigned in this obj. So C2 contains the values 2, 4. C1 contains the value 10, 5. So I'm not creating any object for C1. I'm just creating an object only for C2. So after plus, what we have here is an object. Okay, so if I want to call the value of C2, I have to use an object to call it. If I want to call the value of C1, don't use any object. Now come to this point. I am saying C dot real equal to real. So when I say only real, I am not using any object here. That means it takes the value 10 plus obj dot real. That means I'm using an object to call a real. So if I'm using an object to call a real, C2 value. So C2 value is 2. So 10 plus 2, 12 is going to be stored in C dot real. Now come to the imaginary part. C dot imaginary equal to, I'm just saying imaginary, I'm not using object. That means it takes C1's imaginary value 5 and then obj dot imaginary. So now object, so C2's imaginary value 4. So 5 plus 4, 9 is going to be stored here. Alright. So if I am calling C, it contains a real value as 12 and the imaginary value as 6. Now look very carefully. I am displaying this value over here in another function, not inside this function. I am calling that in another function. So I need to return this object. So if I need to return an object, if you're returning a variable, say for example, if I'm returning an integer value, I have to use integer. If I need to return a float value, I have to use float. Now what I'm returning here is a float value. I'm sorry, it's an object. Okay, so what I'm returning here is an object. So if I'm returning an object, only a class name can accept it. We can't use integer, we can't use float. It is not going to be accepted in any case. I'm returning an object, so I'm using a class name as a return type. I hope you are clear why I'm using a class name at the beginning of the operator overloading syntax, since I'm returning an object. Okay, so if you have any doubt, please replay this video again and have a glance. You'll have a clear idea why we are using class name in all the places. Now, so inside the print, I'm saying cout real plus I imaginary. So it should look like a real complex value. So I'm giving real without double quotes. So it takes a real value, that means 12, plus I in double quotes. So plus I will be printed as it is, and imaginary, the value 6 is going to be printed. So inside the main function, I'm creating three objects. C1 for giving the first imaginary value 10, 5. So I'm calling the function value. So it takes 10 and 5 over here in this parameter are 10 I 5. I'm sorry, 5 or 2 or 5. So real is going to have 10 and imaginary is going to have 5. So likewise for the second object for C2, I'm having the value 2, 4. Again, it's going to be assigned there. And next I'm saying C3 equal to C1 plus C2. And here is where the operator overloading is going to be called and it's going to be performed. And the last step I'm saying C3 dot printf. Why I'm using only C3 to print? The C3 alone contains the added value. If I'm saying C1 dot printf, I'm going to get the output as 10 plus I5. If I say C2 dot printf, I get 2 plus I4. C3 contains the added value, so I'm calling C3 dot printf. So I get the answer as 12 plus I6, 6 or 7, 5 plus 9. So let's check that output once again. Yeah, 12 plus I9. So we are adding 10 plus 2, 12, and 5 plus 4, 9. I guess you people are clear about this operator overloading. I have taken a little bit complex program here, but the program will go something like this. From the next unit onwards, it will be get a little bit complex. So if you have any doubt, please feel free to ask if you have any doubt in this program. So I'll clarify that. So in the next video, let's learn about the last topic in the first unit, constructor and destructor. Thank you.